Hello and welcome back to the Shakey Sonnet Show. We're here again in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library, which may or may not have some lions couchant sitting on the steps waiting for someone to wander by, wondering if perhaps they might want to couchant avec lui ce soir. Today, welcome to the daisy chain. We're in Sonnet 40. It's a very strange and a very beautiful sonnet that stands as one of my favorites, even though I don't exactly know what it means. And reading the sonnet, it's sort of like listening to one of your favorite songs that you love to listen to, but you don't exactly know what they're saying, but you can't get it out of your head. You just love it, love it, love it, even if you can't necessarily translate why you love it. It's like listening to a song perhaps in French or German or Italian if you don't know any of those languages, or listening to an opera aria in some foreign language, or Gregorian chants if you don't know Latin. But the problem is, this is in English, and I speak English, and I still don't quite get it. So there is, in fact, a musical version of it. Rufus Wainwright does a wonderful rendition of Sonnet 40 in his album named after Sonnet 40, which is called Take All My Loves. And there's a portion in it where Marius de Vries speaks the sonnet among all the singing, and it's very dramatic, it's very emotional, and it's just gorgeous. And if I can find a link to it, I will link it below. Now, Sonnet 40, we have the repetition of the word love 10 times within the 14 lines of the sonnet, and 5 times within the first quatrain. So each time that the word love appears, there appear to be multiple possibilities for meaning or reference, and that, while lovely sounding, can get to be a bit of a problem. Don Patterson, who in his reading Shakespeare's sonnets, says this, and it's wonderful to have a poet talking about Shakespeare's sonnets. He says, "One aspect of the art of poetry is controlling the bandwidth of interpretive ambiguity. Too little, and the poem has no wider suggestive dimension. Too much, as here in Sonnet 40, and no consensual interpretation can ever be reached." And as an example of this, he says that Stephen Booth, in his annotations to the sonnets, this is Stephen Booth's Shakespeare sonnets, he says that Stephen Booth, for just line 5, gives 7 different interpretations, and that's just too much. My approach in reading the sonnet is to simply concentrate, but also at the same time try to let it just wash over you and try to figure it out, try to get the best sense of the poem as you can. And you'll get 1 or 2 or 10 or 12 or 50 or 100 different versions every time you read it, which could make it even that much more fascinating. But we're going to look at it now as if we're encountering it for the first time, because some of you are, in this sonnet series of 154. I will tell you right off the bat, it's supposed to be, common knowledge. The scholars who have read all 154 sonnets say that it's supposed to be the young man is the subject, Shakespeare is the narrator, and they're talking about a mistress who apparently the young man has slept with Shakespeare's mistress. So everybody's fooling around on everybody else, but if you don't know that when you first encounter it, that's not readily apparent, and I'm not necessarily sure that you need to know all of that, but I just wanted to give you the historical perspective on this sonnet. I want to approach this as a virgin reader, and although we're a smidge too late for that, we'll do our best. We'll press on as if we are. So let's pretend that we're encountering Sonnet 40 for the first time in the series, 1 through 39 we've been through. We got through that bump of 37 and 38. We know that there's some sort of or we surmise, we've decided to make up a story as we go along. And my story as we go along is that there seem to be, if there are only two people, there seems to be some kind of separation. It may be a physical separation, it may be an emotional separation, it may be a breaking up point. And we're not necessarily sure why, but then we get Sonnet 40, and this, I'll read it out and we'll go through it. Sonnet 40. Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. What hast thou then more than thou hadst before? No love, my love, that thou mayst true love call. All mine was thine before thou hadst this more. Then, if for my love thou my love receivest, I cannot blame thee for my love thou usest, but yet be blamed if thou thyself deceivest by wilful taste of what thyself refusest. I do forgive thy robbery, gentle thief, although thou steal thee all my poverty, and yet love knows it is a greater grief to bear love's wrong than hate's known injury. Lascivious grace, in whom all ill well shows, kill me with spites, yet we must not be foes. Isn't that lovely? So we'll just start out the first quatrain. Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. In some sense, they're all throwing their bodies all around town. And as I said, welcome to the daisy chain. Perhaps all my loves are all the people that I've been in relationships with before. Take them, take all of them. Or take every kind of love that I have to give you. My friendship love, my sexual love, all my loves. Take them all, my love. And once you've taken them, what hast thou then more than thou hadst before? Are you any richer now that you've taken all my loves? No love, my love, that thou mayst true love call. You take all my loves, and what else do you have on top of that? You don't have anything more that you can call true love, because all mine was thine before thou hadst this more. Before you took any more of my love, you had all of my love. It's almost as if I have no more love to take, unless the last three people that I slept with are in line, and apparently they are. Then if for my love thou my love receivest, this is the second quatrain, and I'll just note that in the second quatrain, all of the rhymes end in est, receivest, usest, deceivest, refusest. Excuse me. And there's a bit of monotony here. Then if for my love thou my love receivest, I cannot blame thee for my love thou usest. So if you're if you're trying to get me jealous by sleeping with all the people that I've slept with before, I can't blame thee. I can't blame you for using these people this way in order to get at me, but yet be blamed if thou thyself deceivest by willful taste of what thyself refusest. If you don't see that it's going to make me jealous, then don't deceive yourself. It will. But still, this is what's going on, and I'm sleeping around, and you're sleeping around with the people I'm sleeping around with. So I know that's the way it goes. I do forgive thee. I do forgive thy robbery, gentle thief. So even though you're taking everything that I have, all of my past lovers, all my love, my current love to you, all the love that I have to give you, I forgive you, although thou steal all my poverty. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about that. It's sort of like there's a hall of mirrors in this orgy, and there's a mirror on the ceiling, and the bed's just spinning around with all these loves. I do forgive thy robbery, gentle thief, although thou steal thee all my poverty, and yet love knows it is a greater grief to bear love's wrong than hate's known injury. So I forgive you for having stolen either my heart or my mister or mistress, or everything that I have to give you because you already have it. And poverty, if we think of poverty as we looked at the earlier sonnets, whenever there's money talk, there's also sexual talk because there's the money shot. So poverty, perhaps he's spent everything and now all he's got is himself after he's spent. Or it could mean some cheap whore that he's been going around with, which happens to be the same cheap whore that I'm going around with. But as I've told you in many sonnets before, you're so much better than I am. That cheap whore, you're much better than that cheap whore. For me, it's okay. For you, not so much. Or the poverty could be, if I had more, I'd happily give it to you. But I don't because you've taken all the love that I have. And love knows, and this love could be like God knows, like love knows. It's a greater grief to bear love's wrong than hate's known injury. Being hurt by someone you love, I know, dear, it's okay. Just keep it together. It'll all be over soon. Being hurt by someone you love is generally much, much, much worse than being hurt by your enemies because you know that your enemies hate you and you know that your enemies want to hurt you. So, of course, it's worse when someone you love hates you. And then we come to the couplet, lascivious grace, which is just, I don't know, it just sends me that phrase, lascivious grace. It's so weird and so oxymoronic in some way, but it's so perfect. Lascivious grace, in whom all ill well shows. So either all ill shows well, or in whom all ill well shows, like all your ills are showing up for me to see in this lascivious grace. Kill me with spites, yet we must not be foes. So when we get to this lascivious grace, it's almost like a new name for the lover, and yet it's not. It's its own description of what's going on. You can fuck around on me, but let's not separate because of it, because it's just sex, right? Because I'm doing the same thing, and I'm just saying, you just happen to have picked the same person that I was doing it with. And if you look at these, you've got that battering ram of love, the drumbeat of love, 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 which is what? A one-syllable word. And if you look throughout, there are a lot of one-syllable words here, and then you've got that weird slight monotony in receivest, usest, deceivest, refusest. So you've got this kind of drumbeat of sameness, but it's the word love, the most exalted word in the English language, and almost monotonous in some ways, this drumbeat of single-syllable words, love, 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 love. And then we get to lascivious grace, which lascivious is 4 syllables by my count. Stephen Booth says it's only 3, but I say it's 4. And it's such a sexually sounding term, lascivious grace. It's got that soft L and that slippery sliding love, as if you're just the long, smooth slide into sin. And then there's that V in the middle with that hard thump of a G with grace. And of course, you always want the hard thump of a G in the middle of a lasciviously graceful moment. We'll just call it the G spot for our purposes. But it's a really beautiful, strange poem that has many, many, many possibilities going on here. And the ill well shows it could be that every evil appears better because of love, or all evils show up even more clearly in sex, I suppose. So it's a complicated poem. It's a wonderful poem. It's a sexy poem, which we all love, which we all know I love. And one has to wonder, well, is there a man or a woman being talked about here? It's, of course, not clear, but I'm just going to say it's a party. So that's it's a party. It could be anyone and everyone. Anything goes. It's the swinging 60s. It's the daisy chain. It's all the joy of sex in this one poem. Now, the narrative seems to make clear what has been going on. Before we got in 36, we two must be twain, and in 39, we must divided live. So maybe we know why they are having a little bit of trouble. Maybe one's distancing from the other while they're both sleeping with this other person. And it's a much more explicit commentary of what appears to be two duplicitous lovers. And we could say that, well, it is just sex. But in theory, it's just sex works much better in theory and in the abstract than it does in the actuality. It's almost like, in fact, I thought I was the only one who was fooling around. And if you're fooling around too, and with the same person I'm fooling around with, how very dare you? How dare you? I'm fooling around with that person, and I'm fooling around with you, and you're just fooling around with each other. It's just not, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of both of you. And, it's okay if it's just me, but if it's you too, then things get a bit complicated as we see this back and forth and circling around and everything everywhere, and it just all gets a little bit confusing after a while. Now, in terms of dramatic possibilities within Shakespeare, Edmondson and Wells say that Antony and Cleopatra would be the dramatic equivalent where you might be able to see this sonnet in there. I'm not familiar enough with Antony and Cleopatra. I don't remember it. I did read it, but I don't necessarily see how that fits in. If it were staged, I could certainly see a very dramatic moment between two lovers where they're confronting one another about or three, and there's one in the background smoking a cigarette while the other two argue. It's a lovely, lovely poem. It sounds good. It's exciting, even if you don't know exactly what's going on. Just like when you walk onto the piazza and there are two lovers fighting with one another and the third person in the back smoking a cigarette. You don't exactly know what's going on, but you're going to stay for the show. And that's what Sonnet 40 is. So, what is your experience with this sonnet? Have you read it? Do you think it's are you still in the dark? Is there something you can illuminate for me that I haven't been able to see with this? Where are we going to go from here? I mean, it seems we've had, oh, I love you, you should procreate, things get sexy, people get separated, there seems to be trouble, and now we kind of know why there's trouble according to my reading of these sonnets so far. Can't wait to see what's in Sonnet 41 and beyond. And even if you're in the dark about what's going on, paying attention is still worthwhile. There are wonders here. You may not exactly understand it, but if you don't pay attention, you might miss it all. So I give you an A for effort, and I give myself an A for effort as well. Until we meet again and talk about the next sonnet, I am Tootight Lautrec. Mwah.